it's not a problem, was it? If you brought your ticket up with you, we can validate your parking when you leave.
Okay.
Okay. So, do you have a resume?
Yes, I do, actually.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you. Wow, impressive.
Thank you.
Very impressive. I see here you're top of your 4.0. Wow. That's straight A's.
Thank you.
So how do you feel about taking all of this knowledge and putting it into practice? I mean, you feel confident?
Oh, yeah, very confident.
You think you could do that? You wouldn't have any problem? I mean, because I know when you learn the aspects of the job in a pretty controlled environment, and then you get put into an environment that's not controlled. I see here you have lots and lots of years of high-stress environments, so you feel like you're pretty confident putting that to work inside the hospital as well as you did in the ambulance?
Definitely.
Okay. Describe your typical day for me.
My typical day, basically I would come in, I always have to make sure that that I'm just prepared, kind of lay everything out, make sure everything is clean. For me and my job, just preparation. You know, just make sure that I'm prepared, make sure that I'm ready to explain every procedure that I do to it, everything that I do to a patient before I do it, and go on from there.
Okay. Yeah, because I know typically you can't really describe a whole,
No,
you know, emergencies in healthcare. It's kind of hard. You really can't expect a whole lot because the unexpected always happens.
Exactly.
What type of call schedule do you usually work? How do you feel about working second or third shift, or what do you usually do?
Actually, I don't have a problem with it. I'm pretty flexible on where it is that I can work and how it is that I can do it, as long as it's something that's set, because I do have a family. And next to, you know, actually, my family is means a lot to me, as far as being there for my children, you know, being there for my family. So as long as it's something that I can have set or something that we can work on, I can always kind of work with you. As far as being on call, you know, if that's my job, it's part of my job duties. So, I mean, that's what I'm here for. I'm willing to fulfill it.
And you have somebody who can take care of your children. I mean, your wife will be there or be able to do that, or whomever, if for some reason you have to be called in.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. And also, Devin, just excuse me, I'm an active listener, so I like to write down things, you know, if it's something that's interesting. So, go ahead. I'm listening.
Have you ever accomplished anything you didn't think you could? And, I mean, if so?
Not at all, to be honest with you. Once I put my mind to something, it's usually always a done deal for me. I'm a person who lives by the word. So if I say that it's something I'm going to do, it's as good as done every time.
So, could you describe your most significant accomplishment?
For me, my most significant accomplishment is absolutely a family commitment. I was never one of those people who ever saw myself as a family man, and was being committed to a family and actually, you know, being a father. So, you know, for me, that was my ultimate accomplishment. You know, as far as, and the reason why I say that is because becoming a father, it gave me the motivation to decide to become a nurse. So, I mean, it led me to the point that I'm at. I'm thankful.
So are you satisfied with your career as a paramedic? I mean, I see you've been doing this for lots of years, and obviously you know the stuff. I mean, according to your grades, according to what we see here, I mean, you know what you're doing. So are you satisfied with, you know, I mean, being a paramedic? Are you satisfied working in the healthcare industry?
I absolutely am. I'm satisfied with being a paramedic and doing what it is that I do. I decided for a career change because of the simple fact of the high stress that a paramedic goes through. When you look up the lifespan of a paramedic, most of the time it's like 62. And a lot of it is contributed to the stress that you endure a lot of times. So I realized that once I got older, you know, I'm in my 50s, I'm not going to want to be lifting patients and put them in a stretcher, or, you know, for that matter, dealing with, you know, the high stress level that you go through as being a paramedic. So I decided on a career change. And plus, on top of that, more time to, you know, be able to try to relax.
So going back to everything you've done as a paramedic over the years, is there anything that you would change if you could?
No, not at all. Nothing.
Nothing that you've done, or?
Nothing, because everything is experience, you know. So, you know, to change one thing, a a lot of times, you know, may mean changing a part of you. So even mistakes I made, you know, mistakes are the opportunity for you to learn. So I welcome mistakes also.
Well, I agree. I think that that's a great opportunity to learn, but you also know in healthcare industry it's very hard.
Right.
There's not a lot of room for mistakes, especially and obviously working as a paramedic, you realize that, I'm sure. One of the things that I really want to stress is, obviously in the field that you're in, you're aware that everything goes, you know, nothing is choreographed. It's just, it kind of falls where, you know, it may. And in a situation like that, you may have 2, 3 people giving you demands to do something, one telling you one thing, one telling you another. Obviously, you're kind of, you know, veteran to that. How do you feel about conflicting demands? If somebody tells you to do something and then you've got 10 people pulling at you, I mean, how do you handle that?
Well, the thing about it is I believe in the quality of my work. And a lot of times, though you may have 3 or 4 people who's rushing you to do one thing, I can only do one thing at a time. In situations like that, my philosophy has always been to get organized. If I have to, as you can see, I'll write everything down as I need to and let each person know when it is that I can get back to them and how long it is that I'll be before I can do it. That's it. Pretty much the only thing you can do. You can't go 3, 4, 5 different directions at the same time. You can only go one direction, but you must be organized and you must be detail oriented about everything that you do. So, you know, on some patients, though I may leave them waiting and they may think, well, he's taking a long time, when I get to them, I promise by the time that I leave, they'll leave nothing else.
Right. I agree. I do. I totally agree. I was a nurse for 10 years, so I understand. And you're going to be asked, you know, several times you may be told to go do it this way, and then somebody's going to come behind you and tell you to do it. It's very important that you're confident in your skills and what you know.
Right. So
that you know, sometimes it's solely up to you to try and make that decision. You may have, you know, the charge nurse telling you one thing and the physician telling you something else, and you really kind of have to know and be confident in what you know for you to be able to make that decision. Okay, well, the doctor knows what they're talking about. I've dealt with this situation, or the charge nurse wasn't over here, so she's not real familiar. So I think it's important for you to be very confident in what you know, and apparently, you know, like I said, you know this stuff, so as long as you don't lose that confidence and then get thrown into a situation that's hectic,
right,
and then be like, go blank, because we can't afford for that. But you sound like you really know what you're talking about. You sound like you've done this a long time, and you'd never know, you just graduated with your nursing degree, but it sounds like you'd be a really great asset to the company, you know, to this career. I mean, is there anything that you need to know about us that may help you make your decisions?
Well, actually, there's really nothing. Actually, before I came into this interview, I actually looked up, you know, everything to this company, because before I come into an interview, I like to know what the philosophies are. You know, I like to understand what a lot of the policies and how happy most of the employees are. So there's really not a lot, but I do have some questions.
Okay.
I guess you've answered a lot of the questions that I already had down, which I'm sure I knew you already would once I got here. But my first question is this. You know, as I stated earlier, I am a father. And a lot of times, I know most of the time that it's acceptable for most females to take off time to, you know, spend time with their children when they're sick, etc. And I know that at times, you know, my wife is not going to be able to do it, and I'm going to have to be able to step in. Is that frowned upon?
No, it's not. When you come into working in this industry, obviously working in the healthcare industry, one of the things you learn as a nurse is, you know, disease and sickness has no prejudice. Well, we don't look at our employees you know, differently just because you're male or female. Depending on whether or not,